Released on October 26, 2008 in North America, Guitar Hero World Tour took the gameplay from its predecessors and really amps it up with the many changes in place. A lot of this game's changes and formula were inspired by Rock Band, which was released shortly after Guitar Hero 3. This formula would be used for the rest of the Guitar Hero games on console. It changed the legacy for the series forever. So, without further ado, let's analyze what made World Tour so different from previous Guitar Heroes and what its influence was on future games in the series. Guitar Hero World Tour made the biggest changes to the series, and it's all thanks to Rock Band. You see, when Rock Band was announced, Harmonix highlighted it was going to have 4-player compatibility, with each player being able to use a different instrument. These instruments being guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. Neversoft couldn't just continue the pure Guitar Hero formula of just guitar and bass gameplay and continue to innovate in other ways. They knew they had to include drums and gameplay in their latest game, or else they would be behind Harmonix in terms of innovation for the rhythm game genre. If Neversoft were to disregard drums and vocals and continue to go on with the Guitar Hero formula of making guitar and bass gameplay enjoyable with new innovations, fans and gamers would still enjoy these games and realize Rock Band and Guitar Hero are two different franchises, so they're allowed to have not exactly the same things, or else they would lose their uniqueness. However, this wasn't the case for casual gamers or people who knew very little about video games. Think about it. If someone who knew nothing about Rock Band or Guitar Hero, except for the fact Guitar Hero is mainly guitar gameplay, and Rock Band has 4 different ways to play, they're going to most likely pick Rock Band because they can play with 3 of their other friends and use all the different instruments to play. Because of this, Neversoft had to include the drums and vocals, or else people would be more attracted to Rock Band due to its varying gameplay that would make Guitar Hero look lacking in terms of content. So, speaking of these new instruments, let's analyze them. The gameplay for the drums depends on which drum set is being used. The Guitar Hero World Tour set has 5 different buttons to hit on the upper part of the drums, while the Rock Band set only has 4 buttons on the upper part. There's also a kick pedal that sits on the floor under the set of both. As you can see, I'm using the Rock Band set. So how does this affect the drums gameplay? Well, it's optimal to use the World Tour set because that's what the game was intended for, but using the Rock Band set isn't like playing an entirely different game. Neversoft commented on how they had to compress the notes for drums because of the Rock Band set, so they knew this complication had to be dealt with. Anyways, playing drums isn't that much different from playing guitar or bass. Simply hit the notes as they cross the fretboard to score points and increase the multiplier. The thing about drums is the player has to understand the rhythm of the song if they're going to do good. This is especially true on harder difficulties. The drums also have a special note known as the drum swells. Drum swells are notes that look like they're sustainable, and the player must continue to hit the note or notes until they're gone in order to score the most that they can. Other than that, there's not much else to say. Vocals in this game is based on whether or not the player can match the chords being sung by the vocalist in the song being played. Say the vocalist in the song sings the lyric in the chord C3. The player would have to sing the C3 chord in order to score points. For each difficulty, there's a range in which the player can be off from the chord being sung. Take the previous example discussed. On easy mode, the player could be significantly above or below the C3 chord and still score. On medium, the player could be moderately above or below the C3 chord and still score. On hard, the player could be slightly above or below the C3 chord and still score, and on expert, the player must be on key with the C3 chord to score. Not every lyric has a chord or pitch attached to them. These lyrics are known as unpitched lyrics or talkies, and it doesn't matter which pitch the player sings in. They will always complete the lyric as long as the microphone picks up sound. They are colored red instead of the gray color used for pitch lyrics. Now, individual lyrics don't add to the player's score. Phrases do. Phrases are a string of lyrics that usually make up a sentence. You see, each lyric has a pitch and a boss attached to it to indicate its chord and how long the lyric lasts. The player will have to fill up a certain percentage of the total of lyrics in the phrase in order to score. If the player is able to fill out most of the lyric boxes, they will be rewarded the most amount of points, given an increase in multiplier, and some star power. Now, lyrics and phrases aren't the only things making up the vocal gameplay. There's also freeform sections. There are two different kinds of freeform sections. The first kind is where players can score points by singing the pitch of the song from the other instruments. The other kind is where players can say or sing whatever they would like into the mic and increase the performance meter and get some star power. Both of these freeforms happen during instrumental parts of the songs, usually during the guitar, bass, or drum solo. As a side note, the player can lower or increase the volume to the singing the microphone picks up from the player. Anyways, that's the new instruments and how they work. So what changes have come about the guitar and the bass? For one, the new guitars made for this game have a slider on the lower part of the neck. This slider is used to hit tap notes, which are new to the series. Taps are notes that don't have to be strummed, but unlike hoppos, the player doesn't have to strum again in order to continue hitting more taps if they miss one. Honestly, I don't know why anybody would use this feature. It's kinda cool to use, but very impractical. These tap notes can also be hit by just tapping the 5 main buttons on top of the neck of the guitar. Another new thing is open notes. Open notes are notes that the player just needs to strum. They don't need to press any of the colored buttons in order to score. These really only show up in bass gameplay. Speaking of bass, players can now use the bass in this game without having to play multiplayer. They can play singular player bass. Back to the guitar. In World Tour, guitar battles from Guitar Hero 3 return, but they're different this time around. In this game, players have to beat the score of their opponent's score before time runs out, or else they will lose and have to try the song again. This is a downgrade from the guitar battles from Guitar Hero 3. The third game's battles were fun thanks to their hectic nature, and screwing up your opponents was oh so fun. World Tour's battles are basically just pro face-off battles from previous games, and the player has to go through the entire song in order to win. Guitar Hero 3 awarded players with an early victory if they were smart with how they used their power-ups, but World Tour does no such thing. The guitar battles are still fun, and the opponent's players faced in single-player mode are real-life musicians that made their own tracks for the guitar battles, so they fit their music style, and they're fun. So, there's that. Luckily, this is only the case for the career mode. In multiplayer mode, the guitar battles are like the guitar battles from Guitar Hero 3. Another addition to this game was beginner mode. In beginner mode, all the player has to do is strum open notes if they're playing guitar or bass, kick the pedal if they're playing drums, or sing whatever they want if they're playing vocals. True to its name, it's super easy and made for beginners. Not much else to say. Another thing about the guitar is that there's these things called extendable notes. Extendable notes are singular notes that turn themselves into chords. They're sort of hard to explain how they work, so I'll just let the gameplay speak for itself. Let's move on to the multiplayer for this game. In this game, players can use different instruments for their band. For example, one player has a guitar and the other player has drums, or they can have duplicate instruments. For both of these situations, the whole band contributes to one whole score, but each instrument has its own multiplier. The band can achieve a 2x band streak if every player reaches a 4x multiplier with their instrument. This band streak is essential to getting a good band score and getting 5 stars while playing multiplayer. There's a face-to-face mode in this game, where one player can team up with their friends and battle off against other people's bands over the internet. Whatever band has the most points wins. Of course, face-to-face has the other expected game modes, like Face-Off and Pro Face-Off that I talked about in previous videos. Despite all the new instruments and innovations to multiplayer, World Tour still works great as a single-player game. Neversoft knew players weren't always going to have their friends over playing Guitar Hero every night, so they made sure people with only one instrument still had much to unlock and plenty to play. The new instruments weren't the only thing Guitar Hero borrowed from Rock Band. There's a new mode called Create a Rocker, where players can choose a template rocker and modify them to their likings and their preferences. There's a good amount of clothing options and body customizations for this mode. The player has a lot of freedom when it comes to creating a rocker to their absolute liking. Not only that, but they can also create custom instruments by messing around with all the options available. And one last part to the customization system. Players can create a logo for their band that often appears around the level that they play on. As you can see, my logo is rather simplistic, but these logos could be as complex as you want them to be. Okay, that's enough of the general gameplay stuff. Let's move on to the career mode. There are 5 different career paths in this game. There's 4 different paths for the 4 different instruments, and there's a path for band gameplay. For each of these paths, the venues are slightly non-linear this time. Players have the choice of playing a venue with songs they enjoy more over a venue that has songs that they do not enjoy. Whenever they beat a venue they don't have to pay for, usually 1 or 2 more venues are unlocked. Certain venues unlock instruments whenever they're beaten, and certain venues have real-life musicians who will perform a song for one of the groups they were a part of. The player quote-unquote beats the game whenever they reach and complete the Times Square venue. However, they don't complete a career path until they've done all the free venues. Once a player has completed one of the career paths, they usually unlock a special instrument or character. Guitar, bass, and band career paths unlock special instruments when beaten, vocals unlocks a skeleton character, and drums unlocks the Rocky Bot character. These career paths will also unlock new accessories for create a character and certain parts to put on custom instruments. That's what free venues award. So what do paid venues unlock? Not much. First, I gotta explain what free play is. Unlike quick play, players get to choose which character they want to play and which venue they want to rock on in career mode. But how does one unlock these venues and new songs? Each beaten venue allows for that venue to be played on in free play, and the songs attached to that venue become playable too. That's all the paid venues give, while the free venues give players new accessories, stuff for their custom instruments, and new characters. So, in essence, it feels like a ripoff that paid venues don't give any of these, considering the player has to waste money on them. Well, anyways, as I mentioned before, players can only unlock certain items based on whatever career path they are playing on. Like the vocals path gives new mics because that's what vocalists use. This applies to the real-life musicians as well. For example, Zakk Wylde can only be unlocked on the guitar career path because he plays guitar. Now, let's talk about the money system for World Tour. In previous games, players could only gain money if they beat a song in the main set list of career mode. In this game, players can earn money by beating songs in career and quick play. Extra money can be earned by doing certain things during the song, such as nailing the guitar solo or never using star power. There's also different ranks the player can earn based on the total amount of money they've earned. These don't do anything though, except for display an icon at the song results screen. This screen is also where the player can see what they did during the song to earn them extra cash. Anyways, enough of the career. Let's move on to quick play. Quick play this time is like all the other Guitar Heroes. Pick a song and a difficulty, then play the song. What a surprise. This time though, players pick up to 6 songs they want to play, then go on to play those songs without having to go back to the quick play screen. By the way, all the songs are unlocked from the start. I guess it was more for the casual players. Now, let's talk about GH Studios. GH Studios allows players to create their own songs in Guitar Hero. Well, sorta. Players place notes that make different noises and can change the tone of these notes based on which options they use. These custom tracks don't really sound like songs, they're more like MIDI compilations. The sounds of the notes only go so far, and for whatever reason, lyrics can't be added, which sorta makes sense, but the option to have it would have been nice. Back in the day, players could have also downloaded other people's tracks off of GH Studios. However, these tracks aren't available for download anymore, as the servers went down years ago. Guitar Hero saw the biggest change of visuals in the series from Guitar Hero 3 to Guitar Hero World Tour, and for good reason. Since every instrument can be played, each rocker on the stage had to have unique animations in order to make it feel like each character was pulling their own weight and actually playing their instrument. The game still has that Guitar Hero vibe and aesthetic to it, but strays away from it a little too much in my opinion. Anyways, one of this game's biggest differences in terms of visuals when compared to its predecessor is its realism. Gee, I wonder where they got that idea from. Well, to be fair, this game still has its dose of unrealistic stuff, so it's not copying everything Rock Band had. Anyways, this realism can really be seen in the venues and instruments. Unlike previous games, the venue progression in this game isn't as good when it comes to making the band seem more popular and sensational as they continue on through their career mode. There are some venues along the way that make players feel like they're actually making a difference in the rock industry, but for the most part, the progression doesn't really make it seem like the player's band is getting bigger and bigger with each venue. Now, World Tour has 18 venues, over twice the amount Guitar Hero 2 and Guitar Hero 3 had, and every venue is included in the career, obviously. So one can see why the progression of making the player seem more and more popular for each stage they played on is a bit of a challenge. To be fair, the fault really lies within the venues themselves. You see, the realism in this game sorta takes a toll on some of the levels and makes them feel repetitive and sometimes, if I dare, bland. Now, when I say bland, I don't mean the venue doesn't have any personality or it's just a bad design in general. It means it really doesn't hold up or fit in with the Guitar Hero aesthetic. That's not to say every venue in this game is bad. Some of them are quite cool, but most of them really lack that essence and coolness the first 5 games had. To expand this, I think we should go over every venue and then go back to this point, so you guys understand what we're looking at. Fish Sea Kappa, a frat house full of wacky decorations and details on the wall that represent the fraternity. It only makes sense the party could use some live music with the youth of the night. During encores, some liquid spills over on an amp and ignites the back wall on fire. Wilted Orchid, a dark and mystic bar with a spooky, sorta gothic atmosphere. During encores, the mirrors behind the band open up, and a scary monster with eyes inside of his mouth shocks the audience. Bone Church, a church with, you guessed it, bones laying all over the place with dark lighting and a chilling nature. During encores, a huge flying skull bursts through the window behind the band and levitates in air. Pang Tang Bay, a concert that takes place on the water with the band and the audience stationed on many different boats. During encores, fireworks light up the sky. That's really about it for this venue. Amoeba Records, a big CD store with appropriate music merchandise and details surrounding the band and the audience. Speaking of CDs, players can see real-life albums from the artists featured in the game among the shelves. During encores, the band throws a CD copy of their latest album to the audience and posters show up with the band's name written on them. Tool, a venue that's a trippy and surreal visual experience with its odd drawings and entities which were inspired by the art from the band Tool. Well, you know me, I like surrealism, so I like this level. Swamp Shack, a bar designed after the Dirty South with its swamp and wetlands theming. It's a rather small and dingy place. Rock Brigade, the band plays on a huge aircraft carrier during sunset, and if players look in the background, they can see aircrafts taking off and flying. During encores, a group of fighter jets fly over the audience and fireworks boom. Strutter's Farm, a big open farm that's being used for a county fair as one can tell by the rides, concession stands, and cartoonist illustrations. The band plays on a stage stationed in front of the barn. During encores, the Ferris wheel next to the farm is let loose and travels around the venue. House of Blues. Based on the real-life locations, the band plays on a legendary set in this familiar to some concert hall. During encores, the walkway above the band splits into 2. That's it. Cool, I guess. Ted's Tiki Hut, a tropical restaurant filled with tikis and aquariums on both sides of the venue. It's a pretty neat venue, but why did it have to be a restaurant? Wilhelm's Keep, a venue set at night outside a medieval castle. If one looks closely, they can see knights protecting the castle from outside intruders. During encores, a huge cauldron spills over and lava pours into the drawbridge. Recording Studio. Do I have to explain what this venue is? It's pretty self-explanatory. AT&T Park. Based on the real-life stadium in San Francisco, the band plays during the halftime of a huge baseball game themed by its groovy, psychedelic colors inspired by the vibes of the 1960s. During encores, the bassist swings their bass at a huge beach ball towards the audience. Tesla's Coil, an electric venue with electricity flowing through huge generators and sophisticated devices. It's rather small and dark. Ozfest, a huge concert stage with tons of speakers and an octopus-like creature above the stage. During encores, this creature pulls out its tentacles, reaches towards the audience, and picks up a few people. Times Square. Set on top of a huge skyscraper, the band plays on a legendary event to celebrate New Year's Eve. Players can see advertisements all around them, with bright lights and parade floats down below. There's even a skateboard advertisement to the band's left to reference Neversoft's work on the Tony Hawk games. During encores, the ball drops and 2008 becomes 2009. Oh, how time has passed. The band jumps off the building after the last song, but is saved by a griffin from high above. This begs the question, were they trying to kill themselves, or did they know they were going to be captured? Sonna's Chariot. The band performs on a Viking boat being carried by griffins in the holy skies of Asgard. Keen-eyed players can notice the houses and buildings on the side of the mountain. Okay, I want to reiterate, there are some cool venues in this game. However, I don't believe they're as cool as previous Guitar Heroes, and they should have been executed better. The encores in Guitar Hero 2 and 3 were a lot cooler and more noticeable. They added that excitement for playing that extra song. The encores in this game are boring and practically have no effect on the venues. It's really a shame, because the PS3 and Xbox 360 were more than capable of handling more complex animations while still having the venues loaded in. It's such an underutilization of power. The PS2 was able to handle Guitar Hero 2 and 3's encores, so why couldn't they have been amped up for this game? Again, these venues aren't bad or lack effort, they just don't have that spark or charm previous games had. Venues like Times Square, Strutter's Farm, and Tool are nice additions because they feel unique and have their own personality, but stuff like Swamp Shack, Tesla's Coil, and House of Blues really leave more to be desired. Okay, I think I've talked enough about the venues. Let's move on to the characters. As mentioned before, World Tour features real-life musicians that play different instruments, and the player runs into them throughout the career mode. Along with real people, there's also new fictional characters in the aforementioned Create a Character mode. Let's discuss each of the new characters, starting with the characters, or more than pixels in code. Billy Corgan. Guitarist and singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, Corgan jams out in his signature style with this song, Today. He could be unlocked after beating the Bone Church venue in the band career. Hayley Williams. Lead singer of Paramore, Williams isn't short of energy and is always busting at the seams on stage. She's unlocked after completing the Amoeba Records level on Vocals career. Jimi Hendrix. Yes, you heard right, Jimi Hendrix. Legendary guitarist and singer known for his psychedelic rock music during the 1960s. Jimi Hendrix can only be played when playing one of his 2 songs included in the game. Ozzy Osbourne. Yet another legendary name in rock music. Ozzy is known for being the lead vocalist of Black Sabbath, and of course, his own musical group named after himself. He appears on, you guessed it, the Ozzfest concert, and is unlocked after beating Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley on the Vocals career. Sting. Sting is best known for being the bassist and lead vocalist for The Police, but in this game he shows off his talents from his solo band with Demolition Man. He's unlocked after beating Wilhelm's Keep on the bass career. Ted Nugent. Lead guitarist of the Amboy Dukes in his own solo works, Ted Nugent shreds on mean guitar and World Tour. After beating his guitar battle and playing Stranglehold, he can be played on whatever song the player chooses. Travis Barker. The drummer of Blink-182 bangs it out with their hit song, Damn It. Barker is unlocked after beating the Rock Brigade venue on the drums career, with all of his notable tattoos. And last but not least, Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde is the main guitarist and vocalist of the Black Label Society, and even used to do the guitar for some of Ozzy Osbourne's solo works. Wylde also has a guitar battle in this game, and once players defeat him at his own guitar battle and pass the song Stillborn, Zakk Wylde can be played on any song. Wylde definitely deserved a spot in this game, because if you remember my first Guitar Hero review, you'll know that Wylde actually asked Hermanus if he could put one of his songs in Guitar Hero 1. So now that he's actually in a Guitar Hero, it all comes together. Anyways, Neversoft did a good job of translating these real-life rockers' personalities into the game. It really reflects whenever they play their hit songs, their instruments of choice, and the apparel they were given. With that being said, I can't say the same thing about the fictional characters. World Tour features 4 new characters unlocked right from the start of the game. Marcus Fret Shredder, presenting the guitar gameplay, Ricky Lee, representing the vocals gameplay, Shirley Crowley, representing the bass gameplay, and Maddie Keynes, representing the drums gameplay. These characters appear in the cutscenes of this game, and I must say, they actually have a decent amount of personality and good design in these movies. However, compared to their 3D models, they look generic as hell. These guys don't look that much different than going into Creator Rocker mode and hitting the random button. They look a little too realistic. Guitar Hero characters were always known for having something exaggerated about them, or something that stood out about them. I don't know what to say about these new characters because there's nothing to them. So, let's move on to the secret characters. Surprisingly, the hidden characters are actually pretty cool if I do say so myself. Rockubot, a robot rocker whose only function is to rock and play some heavy tunes. Rockubot has a ton of rock equipment all over him, like his chest is an amp, his arms have strings on them, and his legs have a star power gauge on them. He's just as cool as Metalhead. Skeleton. He's a skeleton alright, but is able to do whatever it takes to rock out. Not as cool as the Grim Reaper, but he's still up there. Now, these characters are totally worth going through career mode to unlock. How bad do the new characters have to be that I like something as bare bones as a skeleton way more? Lack of polish and poor design is the answer. Okay, now, what about the returning characters? They also lack some polish and charm, but they look alright, and have 100 times more of the personality of those other characters. Now, let's move on to the Creator Rocker mode. This mode gives a lot of options when it comes to the proportions and the stuff the player wants to put on their custom rocker. They can change the size of the rocker's head, the shape of their nose, their physical height, eye color, and so on and so on. For the clothing options, there's a various amount of shirts, pants, and accessories for the arms and face. Players will have to buy some of these accessories in order to use them, and some of them cost a good amount of money, so the player will really have to grind if they want the character to look as cool as they can. Okay, enough of the characters. Let's talk about the animations. The animations are pretty good and energetic. The rockers on stage really play their instruments and get into the groove of the music. The facial animations in this game were cranked up a lot too, since every character model can be used for the vocal gameplay. The lighting and the interactivity of the venue also play into the energy and complexity of the visuals. The characters will even interact with each other on stage too. The guitars and basses can also be seen singing parts of the song too. The star power animations are the same from last game. Electricity flows out of the characters and tends to go all over the place. Still lame. I miss the cool things characters would do in Guitar Hero 1 and 2. Oh well. Alright, let's talk about the instruments next. When it comes to the Create an Instrument mode, players have a good amount of options when it comes to what they want their instruments to look like. Except for the microphones. There's not as many options, and most of them don't look special or something to write home about. For the guitars and bass, players choose the shape of the body of the guitar, design the body, and then mess around with the headstock and neck part of the guitar. For drums, players choose the set of drums they want and put one of the many pre-made designs on it. Players can also choose which highway they want to play on. That's about it for the instruments. The menus in this game are a pretty big change too. The previous games had players going through menus that resembled art outside of a venue that either promoted the venue itself, promoted the band's playing, or were just some promotion or ad. These menus also had a dash of surrealism or weirdness added to them. This game lacks these type of menus. Instead, a lot of the general menu settings and options take place on the back of the 4 people on the main menu. This main menu does have a nice flow from option to option, but I would have much preferred the strange posters. To be fair, the artwork for the venues on the career wall are pretty cool and do fit that aesthetic of previous games, so that's a plus. Guitar Hero World Tour setlist is perhaps the most unique and various compared to every other Guitar Hero. World Tour has a bunch of different genres of rock, songs from international artists, and plenty more songs with female artists. Despite this, World Tour also made sure to include famous songs from famous artists that were pertaining to more basic kinds of rock, as to not scare off those who were more accustomed to the setlist of previous Guitar Heroes. For what it's worth, this selection of songs is pretty solid, and not to mention, every song is a master recording, so there are no covers being used. Speaking of which, there's also a few live songs included in this game. The only problem I have with the setlist is the encore songs. The encore songs differ on all career paths, and only some of them actually feel like an encore song. A song that's worth the excitement and adrenaline pumping whenever the band gets to play that one last song to go out with a bang. This game doesn't include any bonus songs either. This isn't that big of a deal though, the setlist is already big enough, and the smaller artists are implemented throughout the career venues. They're usually placed among the paid venues. Additionally, the crowd will also sometimes sing along to the song at certain parts. It adds to the immersion of the game, but personally, I never really cared for this feature. Other than that, I don't have much else to say about the music for Guitar Hero World Tour. Like Guitar Hero 3, World Tour was released for the Xbox 360, PS3, PC, Wii, and PS2. The Xbox 360, PS3, and PC versions are identical in content and graphics. The differences show up in the Wii and PS2 version. The Wii version has everything the next-gen versions have, the only difference being the graphics. World Tour on the Wii can only run at 480p. Online play and DLC are still intact. Now, what about the PS2 version? Well, let's start with its graphics. Oh god. If you're wondering what the hell you're looking at, I have two explanations. Either Budcat, the company behind the PS2 and Wii ports, pre-recorded the venues and the way they interact with the songs, and added the in-game models on top of the video, where every texture besides the rockers is really low quality, so the characters pop out like a sore thumb. For what it's worth, it does run at 60 frames per second, but it takes forever to load. Now, let's look at Rock Band on the PS2. It still looks very low quality, but look how everything comes together, and nothing unnecessarily sticks out. It's cohesive. I understand World Tour and Rock Band are two different games, but if Rock Band was able to have decent graphics with its 4-instrument gameplay, why couldn't World Tour? Graphics aren't everything, but if they're an eyesore, it's distracting and shows a lack of effort or commitment. Okay, what also separates the PS2 and Wii versions from the next-gen versions? Well, the Wii version has Mii Freestyle, which allows players to use their Miis and make their own jams as they use the guitar or drum controllers, or they can also use the Wiimote and nunchucks. Also, both versions have Metalhead and Elroy Budvest for Guitar Hero 3. Metalhead maintains his classic design in the PS2 version, but for whatever reason, Vicarious Visions decided to change his design for the Wii version. This version of Metalhead actually first appeared at Guitar Hero Aerosmith for the Wii, but this was his first main series appearance. This design is so ugly. He went from a cool rocker robot that shredded like his non-existent soul depended on it, to a reject from the Robots movie. Both versions are also missing the create your own setlist part of the career mode, for whatever strange reason. With that, that's about it for the version differences. Guitar Hero World Tour doesn't have too much extras. There's some bonus videos players can watch on the making of the game, including the aforementioned real-life rock stars, along with some other rock stars that weren't included in the game but helped in development, such as Chad Smith, the drummer for Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's also a video announcing Guitar Hero Metallica in there, a spin-off that used the World Tour engine in gameplay. There's more cheats in this game compared to Guitar Hero 3, including being able to change the color of notes, the color of the mic fireball, making the rockers invisible, along with secret unlockable characters. Who these people are, I do not know. They're just here. I must say, these new cheats are fairly simple, but do add to the flair and uniqueness of this game. They're great additions. Now, let's talk about the issues of this game. There should have been more incentives to use cash in this game. Now, there is plenty players can purchase in the Create a Rocker mode, with tons of clothing options, and customizations they can make to their custom instruments. Not to mention the venues that have to be paid for to be played on in career mode. I think this game should have included more of those out there or fictional accessories and clothing for Create a Character mode, such as the Rocky Bot pieces or the Gorilla Mask. Not to mention, most of these outworldly accessories are only applicable to male custom characters. Female custom characters don't have that much options in terms of really cool accessories. This could have been big assets Guitar Hero could have used to separate itself from Rock Band and really add to the variety of custom characters. As such, there should have been more pre-made instruments like the unlockable and special guitars for Guitar Hero 3. Again, there's a lot of options and customizations for the instruments, but what would I do to play on the Grim Reaper Scythe again? My second issue comes from the direction of this game. It just takes a little too much influence from Rock Band. Having Neversoft take parts of Rock Band's gameplay makes sense. That's how the competition between these games work. However, Neversoft should have stopped at some point and decided to take things into their own hands and decide what was best for the series of Guitar Hero. This game is still very unique in comparison to Rock Band, but just a little too similar in my book. I should also mention the lack of polish in some areas of this game. Like, the fretboards in this game are unimaginative and nowhere as near as creative and cool as previous games. The fretboards for the real-life musicians and special characters are pretty nice, but the ones for the custom characters and pre-made characters are lacking. Guitar Hero World Tour took the series down a new path thanks to the invention of Rock Band, and is able to create a unique 4-player gameplay experience so that it's fun, but also has its own uniqueness. World Tour has a lot of variety in gameplay, its create modes, music, and designs. It of course suffers from some lack of creativity and over-influence of Rock Band, but the whole experience is very fun and worthwhile. So let's count everything up. 4 different instruments the player can use that have their own career path, 86 songs on disc from a variety of genres and artists, 18 venues that are hit or miss, 18 new characters from the real world and from the studios of Neversoft, create a character mode that allows players to create a character to their own liking with its many customizations and options, new ways to earn money with the new cash system, GH Studios where players can create very basic songs to add onto their playlist, fun, silly, and simple cheats that don't change the gameplay, and tons upon tons of other content the player can unlock and use to have fun and add on to the gameplay. After World Tour, Guitar Hero was never the same as it was before. Every main series game had the 4 different playable instruments, Crater Rocker and instrument modes, and GH Studios. They became big and basic standards for future games, and would only continue to improve upon them. It was crazy to see how much of an impact Rock Band had on the rhythm game genre as a whole. It wasn't just Guitar Hero that went through this transition. During this time, game companies saw this rhythm game trend and knew they could make a quick buck if it meant people were attracted to games like Rock Band and Guitar Hero. But enough of that. World Tour is still fun to this day, and chock full of content for any new players that have all the instruments. And until next time, rock on! With 3 of your other friends this time, of course.